All right. And now I will say welcome, everybody, and thanks for joining us this evening. My name is David Davies. I'm the Manager of Public Involvement with the Green Line Extension Project. I'm joined by my colleagues Katie Kirk, one of our outreach coordinators, and Andy Collum on our construction team. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm going to be pretty brief. In this meeting tonight, I'm kind of serving a little bit as a support role. I have been the Minneapolis coordinator for a while now, but as of this kind of spring, summer timeframe, Katie, who you will hear from in just a few moments, is taking over Minneapolis outreach coordinator duties for the LRT extension project. For now, if you have my contact information and need to get something urgently to us, certainly you can continue to contact me, but Katie is taking the lead on the work, outreach work coming up in Bryn Mawr in 2023, as well as the rest of the city. So I'm going to turn it over to her, but I just wanted to say welcome to everybody. Thanks for coming, and you'll hear from probably all three of us as we commence with this presentation and talk through this work together. So Katie, it's your show.
Okay, thank you, David. And I hope folks can hear me okay. Maybe just give me a thumbs up if you can hear. Okay, of course, my headset just died right before I got on the meeting. So this way of connecting through audio should work just fine. So thank you. I'm gonna just adjust my screen here and pull up what I need to see on my screen. And you all are seeing the slides, right? Okay. I am looking for, oh, okay, there we go. I found what I need. Okay, here we go. All right, so thank you. And so if anyone could go ahead who is oh, if for anyone who can who is not muted, if you could go ahead and mute your mic. You're in the right place if you're looking for the Penn Avenue South and South Wayzata Boulevard LRT construction activities community meeting regarding this work that's happening here in Minneapolis. So welcome. Just a few things, like David mentioned, my name is Katie Kirk. I'm serving as a community outreach coordinator for the Minneapolis segment of the Green Line Extension project. And we're glad that you're here. We're glad that you've been able to join the meeting and that you're interested in this project, this work, but specifically this piece of work that's affecting the Bryn Mawr community. Thanks to the Bryn Mawr Neighborhood Association, I've made some contacts there. They've been helpful in getting the word out about this meeting and the work being done in the community. Just a few housekeeping items. As David mentioned, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the Green Line Extension website. Please mute yourself when you're not talking, and then we'll hold questions until the end of the presentation. You can type them in the chat at any time, or the other way to ask a question verbally is to use the raise hand feature in Microsoft Teams here. So thank you, and so think through any questions that you have. So we're all here because we're interested in this project, whether we're local business representatives or community residents on the project or project staff. So thank you for being here. Okay, on to today's topics. So just in a nutshell, we're looking to do a very brief presentation, the first 15-20 minutes, specifically outlining the the overall Green Line Extension project in a nutshell, but then really drilling down into the Penn Avenue South and South Wayzata Boulevard construction activities and impacts that will be seen this warm weather season in 2023. But then the bulk of the time here is dedicated for your questions that we can help answer that may not have been answered in the presentation. All right, and with that, some of you may be very familiar with the Green Line extension. Some of you perhaps not as much, but this slide details all of what is being built. It's a 14.5 mile segment or new line for the Green Line. 16 new stations, one of which is Bryn Mawr. So folks, in the end, when this is all said and done, can ride all the way from Eden Prairie to downtown St. Paul. There'll be service to the U of M stadiums, downtown Minneapolis. Right now, civil construction will be complete in 2025. Just so you have a sense of the timing, there have been some delays, but 2025 will be when civil construction is done and service will be open in 2027. So we look forward to that time. In terms of the structures that are complete, 70% of the structures are complete or nearing completion, especially in the western portion of the line. In Minneapolis, in the community that you're in, we're getting there. The west end is a little bit ahead of the game, but that's where we're at right now. In terms of the Green Line extension and the scope, again, 16 new stations, many structures, bridges. I won't go through this line by line, but you can get a sense of the magnitude of this investment, this public investment in light rail transit in the Twin Cities metropolitan region. So, and if you have specific questions about the construction, we do have our construction person here, Andy Collum. So when the time comes, you can ask more questions about that if you'd like to. So we really want to be focused, however, on the Penn Avenue South Wayzata site. And we know people may have questions about the project as a whole. But for the purposes of this meeting, we're going to focus in on what's going on Penn and Wayzata. So we want to talk through dates, the duration of the work, access, work hours. So you'll see here is the area that we're talking about. So right sort of where the yellow oval is circling that that intersection area. So this work will require a closure of the intersection at Penn Avenue South and South Wayzata Boulevard. We are holding the meeting now. However, the work will not begin until early June. That's when we're scheduled to start work. And in terms of duration, it is going to last approximately 2 months. So it will be into August. In terms of access, there will be a very clearly outlined detour on especially how to access I-394 East and West. We know that that is a major point of access for the community to get on and off the freeway. So we know that's important. I'll show a slide in just a moment about what that detour will look like. In terms of trail, pedestrian, bike access, that will be maintained throughout the closure of that work, of that intersection while they're working on it. So there will be access throughout for peds and bikes, etc. So, and then Metro Transit buses, we are in coordination with bus operations and with Metro Transit, and they're aware of the closure and will communicate changes to any affected routes. So, and then finally, work hours, to get a sense of when the work will be happening. It's Monday through Friday, anywhere from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Okay, I will move on to phasing and activities. So in this area, some of the main components of work that are happening is the utility work, the intersection, the roadway, the boulevard, the median reconstruction, and also sidewalk construction. You'll see in this picture, it's actually a photo of right down by in the station area, sort of really in the construction zone as it currently stands. looking toward downtown, if I'm not mistaken. So it's kind of nice to see photos of what's down on the ground. And believe it or not, this photo was taken in April, back when we had some snow on the ground, and things are a little different now. So anyhow, it's exciting to see the work unfold. Okay, next slide. All right, so at this point, I might ask if David and Andy want to offer anything else. This is just an aerial shot of the location. So anything you want to add about phasing activities, talking through this visual?
Sure, Katie, I can jump in just briefly. I think this slide just does a good job of showing the overall work that we're planning to execute as part of the contract. So when you look at these roll plots, and many of you have probably seen these before, right? The shaded in areas are the areas where we have work elements. So you see the South Wayzata Boulevard and Penn Avenue confluence down to the south of this page. And then you also see the sidewalks across Penn are shaded in. We've got new painted crosswalks. And then we've also got some work far to the north, farther to the north for some ADA ramps. So while it's not the most dense work we do on this project, it certainly is impactful, and these are major thoroughfares, and we'll be having to coordinate this work to the best of our ability and keeping you all informed of our first moves and our next moves.
Yeah, and Andy, I'll just add to that. I know that we've had some questions leading up to this meeting or just to the work in general about, accessibility. What does the project bring up in this area? Certainly what folks are getting at, who maybe if you're newer to the project and don't understand or don't traverse this area on an everyday basis, new sidewalks that weren't there before. That's kind of a big deal here, especially by the station itself and to the west. Just making things a little safer for folks in getting to and from the station. And just a reminder, the PED overpass that connects down to the station itself is a trail connection. Of course, we as Metro Transit employees will want people to be customers and ride our system, but you will be able to access the PED overpass and get down to the Cedar Lake Trail, without buying a ticket, right? So that's another benefit and accessibility feature here as we talk through just what's coming once this project is said and done. Back to you, Katie.
Okay, great. Thank you. Very helpful. Thank you for filling that in. Okay, we're going to get to the traffic detour now, which is probably a piece of information that folks are quite interested in. So you'll see the detour outlined here. So the red, I'm just gonna, and David, hop in here if I miss anything, Andy too, but the red is the actual closure of what will be closed, this road down here. So there will be, however, this blue line, dark blue, denotes the access where vehicles will travel to get back here, kind of a roundabout way to get to east and west I-394. So essentially, it will add about 5 minutes to the commute to get there. I know some of you live really close and have really nice access to 394 right now. And again, this is a temporary closure, so we're anticipating 2 months that this would be happening. So hopefully that gives you a sense of what the vehicle, the motorized route is. And then once again, there will be full access for pedestrians and bicycles through this construction happening there. So anything I missed on this slide?
Yeah, just a very minor point to the PED and bicycle routes and detours here, Katie. We'll have the access through the zone, through the construction zone. It may move from time to time, but the access will be maintained. And I should say, and access will be maintained.
Perfect. That's a really good point to clarify. Yes, thank you.
So just to recap, folks, if you're coming from the north, let's say, North Bryn Mawr or the area north of 394, you will be able, to get onto 394, you don't have to use that detour, that no detour is needed. You'll be able to come down and access 394 eastbound, westbound, on and off ramps, no problem. It's really for the folks who are living on the south side of 394, or customers, traveling, staff traveling to those businesses there. That's what this detour is really serving.
Good point. Thank you. Okay, with that, just this slide details just some text about the motorized traffic detour as well as the non-motorized. And I've mentioned some of this already, but it preserves access to on and off ramps in both directions to I-394. It's about 5 minutes extra to get from that south area and Bryn Mawr up and around to 394. All business access will be preserved, and we are also sharing this information with city and county emergency services, so they're fully aware of the closure and the routes that they would need to take to ensure they can have access. In terms of non-motorized, that will be preserved through the work zone, and Andy detailed a little bit more of that. Like, the route may shift as the work progresses. Peds and bikes have access to that Cedar Lake Trail in the area. And final details are being coordinated with the city. We're working closely with them, very close partners. And in terms of the route will be more thoroughly shared through Metro Transit's construction update electronic news, and that's probably a good plug for the construction update. I'll give you the address to sign up for that if you're not on it. It's a weekly email newsletter that's sent out with all the construction updates for the Green Line. So, and of course with the community association, the Bryn Mawr Neighborhood Association, we're in close touch with that group as well. All right, and then there are, just if you're curious, there are future construction activities coming down the pipeline beyond 2023. With regards to the Bryn Mawr Station and rail corridor, there's station construction that will be happening, the pedestrian overpass, the vertical circulation, track installation, trail realignment and reconstruction. And then in terms of the street level, you'll see sidewalks, the station entrance, passenger drop off, the bus stop and plaza area, and as well as the boulevard and sidewalk work on Penn Avenue South up to Cedar Lake Road. And this is another photo we dropped in here of like what it kind of currently looks like down on the ground in the station area. Just briefly, we've done a bunch of community outreach related to this Penn Wayzata work. So visiting businesses last week and delivering flyers to all those who live south of 394. The information has gone into the construction update that I mentioned, and there you have the email address to get signed up for that if you're not already. The BMNA communications that go out, where they've been sending out communications, and that's been very helpful. And of course, we're holding tonight's community meeting. In terms of future and ongoing, we're going to be posting this meeting to the website, and materials will be available. The electronic news, as I mentioned, and continuing to send timely updates to the local businesses. And so to ensure that those businesses, their customers have access and are aware of the changes. All right, and then of course you could contact us, the Green Line community outreach staff, with your general questions. And finally, we have a 24-hour construction hotline for urgent construction issues. With that, I will wrap up. I probably talked long enough, so I'm going to open it up for Q&A. So if folks could go ahead and do the raise hand feature right at the top of your screen, or type into the chat. So I don't know if we have anyone in the queue here. Oh.
Yeah,
Oops.
Katie, we've got Rod has had his hand up. And
Perfect.
so why don't we get Rod's question, and then we've got a few questions in chat we can reference.
Hi, could you clarify eastbound on 394, will the Penn Avenue ramp be closed?
Okay, on eastbound 394, will the
You're
I think
coming,
that's-
yeah.
yeah, maybe that's an Andy question.
I think the answer to that is no.
No.
Should be able to go northbound onto Penn from eastbound 394.
Okay. So,
Or you could continue eastbound and get back onto 394.
so
That's really your desire.
So none of the 394 ramps are going to be closed.
They'll be restricted. They won't be closed.
Okay. Thank you.
I think that'll be pinched down to one lane.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
And then going back to chat a little bit, we've got certainly some questions, maybe a couple areas for clarification, but wanted to start out with one of the first questions with just about the park and ride lot. This is a little outside the scope of the meeting, but just wanted to address that question up front. That certainly a lot of questions have always been circulating about park and ride capabilities or potential at different Minneapolis stations, and there are no park and rides planned as part of the project in Minneapolis. So any discussions of park and rides would be in the future once the project is completed, but park and rides are not being built as part of the project. In Minneapolis, I should say, excuse me. Katie, just to reiterate, we'll probably say it a couple times more before we just some dates or timeframes, reiterating timeframes of when the closure starts. That is, the closure itself is again early June, right?
Correct. Yes, early June. And we don't know the exact date. We have some estimations, but we would really like to say early June. And that is what has been communicated and what we're planning for. And then again, 2 months, it will go into August.
Maybe a couple points of clarification too that we've folks, as you can see, we're having this meeting in April. The closure's in June. This work is going to continue to roll out, and some areas are going to get clarified here, including that non-motorized detour. A couple things that we've kind of been working through is the sidewalk work north of 394. Katie, maybe you mentioned it. I might have missed it.
Okay.
Might actually start before that. So the sidewalk between Mount View and 394 might start prior to the actual closure of Wayzata and Penn. I think I'm getting that right, Andy? Maybe.
Yeah, sorry, I was looking at maps.
No
and
worries.
Doing the same thing.
Yep.
Yes, David.
And then Barry, you had just a point of clarification too. You are correct. Sorry, we'll fix that in the PowerPoint. It's not sidewalk up to Cedar Lake Road. We've just got those ped ramps facilities that are off that map that Katie shared. But we have to do the ped ramps at the intersection of Cedar Lake Road and Penn Avenue as well. And that's the type of work that we will certainly make sure businesses and residents in that area are aware of, but we don't have a firm time frame for that ped ramp work, including in front of like Cup of Java, Bobby and Steve's, et cetera. Let's see. Got a couple hands up.
Yeah, did we get Rod Miller? Did we get?
I think we got Rod.
Okay, I'm gonna lower Rod's hand. Okay. Barry.
Just as a follow-up to the question about park and ride, that was a position of the city of Minneapolis not to locate park and rides in the city. They didn't want park and rides here.
I can always
Sure.
count on Barry and there are a couple others on this call that whose faces I see as project historians. You are correct.
Barry, did you want to
David Keller.
discuss? Can I just back up quickly? I see
Yeah.
Barry has another comment here in the chat. Did you want to discuss the? I'm sorry, that was Don. I thought I was looking at the wrong one. I was looking at the service road. My bad. Sorry, guys.
Sure.
Yeah, it looks like, should we go to David Kelleher, who has a hand raised? Go ahead, David.
Thanks. Could you guys address whether and how this project will address safety for pedestrians and non-motorized travelers? If you guys have spent any time at this intersection, you know that it's really dangerous, both on the westbound off-ramp from 394 and probably even more so the on-ramp to 394. If you're crossing on foot or on bike or whatever across the 394 eastbound on-ramp, you're taking your life in your hands. And particularly when people are making the left onto the ramp, they're not paying attention for pedestrians. And so I'm just wondering if this project is going to do anything to make this safer. There's going to be, you guys want people to walk and bike to the LRT station. There are going to be more people doing that. And Andy referenced the other dangerous practice that people have. And that is when people see that traffic is backed up on 394, they use the Penn Ave exit as the early Hennepin Dunwoody exit. And they come flying up that ramp at about 40 or 50 miles an hour. And yes, someone shouldn't be crossing at that moment because they don't have the light, but it's really dangerous. People are just idiots on this intersection. So that's my long-winded way of asking whether and how this is going to be made safer. The project has closed off a lot of other ways to get to the Cedar Lake Trail and the station from the ginormous wall. So people are going to be forced to use this interchange. Thanks.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I for one, I was out there walking those very areas, and it was pretty scary. So I hear what you're saying. I might see if Andy or David want to ring in with some response there.
Can you just call up the roll plot again, Katie? Can we just talk
Sure.
about it from a high level? I mean, from a design perspective, I don't think David or Katie or myself are the ones to necessarily address that question. David, there's basis of design and why the intersection is designed the way it is and what those improvements are per se within that design. We probably aren't the ones to answer that question. The one thing I can tell you is, excuse me, if you look down, in the area we're discussing here, right? We've got, for one, we've got sidewalk now. You guys, it's not there today, right? So that's an improvement. We have improved pedestrian facilities to cross the roads, as you can see at the Penn and Wayzata. And we're also, while it's not exactly that intersection, we are widening those sidewalks across Penn as well. So like I said, as far as design of the intersection goes, I can't really comment on that. I don't know if the wider median makes it safer. I don't know if the bigger ADA landing on the south side makes it safer. I'm just not the guy to answer that question for you. But from a high level, those are the things that I think are improvements at this intersection that likely make it, easier to find refuge from, say, that speeding car or the ability to navigate these intersections.
One change, if I can add one thing to this, one change that was made a few years ago that probably didn't make it safer is having arrows to get onto the Penn on-ramp. So if you were coming southbound from downtown Bryn Mawr, you often would have to wait for a green arrow, and now you don't. And similarly, if you're coming northbound, people just blow the red light if they have a red light and just zoom right by it, and it's frightful. So there used to be some kind of signals for making the turn onto the ramp as well that slowed the traffic down if we're trying to do some traffic calming here. Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Shall we move to the next question? I don't know if is there anything in the chat right now to otherwise we can move to Karen.
Sure, I'm just asking a clarification question about what you said about sidewalk construction. So with the picture you have up on the screen right now, the sidewalks that are going to be built in front of Lurie and Illuminate, is that what you were referring to, that construction might start before the work at the intersection? Or were you referring to a different part of sidewalk?
To clarify, Karen, you're talking about the sidewalks on South Wayzata that extend to the west, as
Yes.
opposed to the sidewalks that are north of 394 that extend up to Mount View.
Correct.
I
You
know.
indicated that some of that construction might be starting earlier, and
I
I
know-
just wanted to know which section you were speaking of.
Right. Here's from my understanding, and Andy can correct me, he may not have the exact schedule at his fingertips, but my understanding is that the sidewalk work going out to the west in front of Lurie and Illuminate is involved in this work and is due to happen around the time of this closure. And that the sidewalk work north of 394 has a likelihood of starting prior to the closure, Karen, in May. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah, because I've asked that question several times, and I know you haven't known. So
Right. No, I know. It's that the sidewalk work, like this sidewalk work north of 394, and the sidewalk work, there are a couple other places in the city where we have basically just sidewalks and ped ramps, and it is the type of work that's kind of floated around. I will say right up front, we have no intention of hurting the beautiful topiary, the installation. We're not going to disrupt that. And we've talked about that before as that installation was occurring when we thought that this work was going to happen much earlier. And so certainly we'll make sure that's the case. I do know there have been residents engaged with the project on the east side while we're at it on Penn Avenue between 394 and Mount View, where there's sort of some vegetation between the kind of frontage road and Penn Avenue. We try to minimize impacts where we can. There is potential for some limited vegetation impacts on that area in order to get the grading right for the sidewalks in that area. But we certainly want to minimize the disruption of existing vegetation where possible.
Yep, and that's what Buddy Scroggins has asked you about.
Yep.
And I was asking because we'll be doing some maintenance work on the hedge the third weekend in May, and so knowing that that's going to be happening is useful information.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to the chat, Katie, Don referenced the North Side Service Road currently being closed. It is my understanding, Andy, that is going to reopen by the time we need to use it as a detour. That's been my understanding in coordination.
Yeah, not our closure, but we are coordinating with Minneapolis. Correct. And those who are pulling permits for that. And my understanding was that it wasn't a full closure; it was just intermittent for that development work over there. But we're certainly in conversations with our counterparts at the city, and we'll be coordinating that until the day the roads are impacted. So we're aware of it, but yeah, to David's point, we don't believe that they'll be coincidental. Therefore, our detour map exists.
Great. Shall we move on? I think Rod, I accidentally lowered your hand for you, but I think Rod, you may have been next in the queue, and then we'll go to, is it Susu after that?
Sure. I just wanted to comment, I'm the liaison from the BMNA to the development, and that North Frontage Road is closed for 1 week, and it should be open by the end of this week.
Okay, up here, this.
North Wayzata Boulevard, right in
North
front of.
Wayzata. Yeah.
Okay. Can you see my little cursor there? I don't know if that shows up.
Yes,
Okay, yeah, okay. And that's related to the development that's going on, yeah, on the north side.
correct.
Um,
But yeah, that'll be open by the end of this week.
Right.
Yeah,
Thank
that's,
you.
yeah, that's good to clarify that that's a very short term closure, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Let's go to, is it Susu? Or Susan? I'm sorry, it's Susu Jeffrey?
Yes,
Yep, we can hear you. Go ahead.
2 questions. First, the safety of people using the Sky Tunnel. Minneapolis has closed down a couple of LRT station areas because of homeless people, drug use, and criminal activity. How do you intend to keep people safe and keep homeless people out and keep drug and passenger threats out of the Sky Tunnel? I know that the city council has discussed this and they haven't come up with a way to keep people safe. Second question is, we expect illegal parking all over the neighborhood, and we would like to be able to call up and have a quick response to people blocking and parking illegally. So can you coordinate with parking police?
Katie, if you don't mind, I'll take a
Yeah,
crack at
please.
those.
Yep.
Susu, thank you. So from a safety perspective, clearly we've got that topic of conversation is front and center on a number of levels, both in the community as well as at the state legislature. I think there are a lot of irons in the fire. We as Metro Transit recognize the importance of addressing these issues, especially on infrastructure, where there are we've seen demonstrated behaviors, as you've mentioned, in overpasses and adjacent to stations. I don't have much more for you today, Susu, other than there's a lot of effort being made to take a harder look at these areas and to adjust and really revamp our safety strategies, especially at our station stops, et cetera. Now, we're not opening Southwest Light Rail until 2027, so a lot is going to change between now and 2027. And I expect us to see very different safety strategies in place by the time the Green Line extension opens. But it is very much front and center when it comes to like thinking about our areas such as like the Penn overpass here at Bryn Mawr, as well as the vertical circulation buildings, right? Like over at Bassett Creek Valley and at Westlake, any place where people can access those areas, we're going to be figuring out both on our existing system and the new system, just how to keep those areas safe for customers. We want people to ride. It's simple as that. We want people to ride. We want people to come back as behaviors change post-COVID. So, and we know we have to put some work in order for that to happen. I will say on the parking issue, I get this question a lot in Minneapolis. And I give a very broad answer, which is to say that there will be processes or there will be conversations to have as we get to opening day about parking in and around LRT stations. Now, those conversations do have to involve the owners of the facilities, like the street facilities, which include City of Minneapolis and in some cases Hennepin County, where parking exists, public parking exists. But I note from both the Bryn Mawr community, from the adjacent townhome community, as well as just the residential streets for public parking. We've got private roads, we've got public roads here. Down at West 21st Street, we've got very popular, a very popular park that already has a lot of parking issues that's just that people say is going to get exacerbated by LRT operations. So those certainly will have to happen. I don't think that we're quite ready to have those conversations yet, but I understand that as they occurred prior or around the opening of Blue and Green Line, those conversations will also happen. And so I think everybody's aware that people call it hide and ride, right? Like hide and ride is very much like it's not a secret anymore. It's not, no one's hiding anymore. It's very, very clear what people are doing when they're trying to park close to an LRT station and get on it without, you know, paying or without being a guest of somewhere. So yeah, that conversation absolutely has to happen, but it's going to involve the owners of the street facilities, and you know, there's a chance that different stations, different treatments could look different at different stations. I can't speak for the city. I can't speak for the county. I just know that the conversations will definitely have to take place.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate the question. It's very top of mind for many. With that, shall we turn to Beth? Beth has a hand raised.
Hi, thank you. Really briefly, with the sidewalk work, is there any attention being paid for bicycle access? For safety, traveling on Penn Avenue never feels safe by bike, and I was just wondering if there's anything in the plan. And I'll mute and take my answer. Thanks.
I would say, in short, not really as part of the like light rail plan. We're not the owners of the facility, and that those were not part of this, like the scope of this project. So, you know, in the case of Penn, certainly there can be future conversations to have about, you know, especially from a neighborhood perspective, about what could happen on Penn Avenue, what modifications could happen. But as part of the project, no. This, first and foremost, the safety is pedestrian oriented, and I totally understand that you know, bikes are just as present as those who walk and roll using sidewalks, but that those aren't part of the LRT plan.
Let's pivot and go to Barry, and then I think we have something in the chat after that.
Yeah, actually, two quick things. One, Beth, the issue you raised is probably something we really should start with the city and the county and figure out what they're planning on doing about it. Rather, so I'm glad you raised that. You know, I'm letting my imagination sort of take me what it's going to be like when imagining that the traffic presently going along South Wayzata Boulevard is now going to shift over to the North Wayzata Boulevard and then angle onto Cedar Lake Road. And I don't know if you've been there lately, but there's a lot of construction vehicles. And if all that traffic is added to what is already kind of a difficult passage, that's going to be a little difficult for 2 months. I go that way a lot, so I'm familiar with.
Yeah, Barry. I think Andy's been in these conversations too. It's sort of like kind of when we're down at Cedar Lake Parkway, when we had to close Cedar Lake Parkway, there aren't a lot of great alternatives. And it's what sometimes makes the fabric of a neighborhood tight, and is that everything's kind of, maybe there aren't a lot of thoroughfares, right? For a neighborhood that might be appealing in some cases, but certainly when we're trying to get people to their destinations, there aren't a lot of alternatives here. And this is sort of the route that's used for, it's direct, and it keeps people on roads that are easy to find, with better capacity, and that's kind of like the main piece there. I know that it's not going to be as fun when there's some additional construction going on. I totally get it. And we've certainly considered that when we think about the route. Yeah.
Thank you. I am noticing a question in the chat, and this might be for Andy Collum. Bill asks, what is the height of the overpass?
Yeah, I was trying to dig that out of the plans here. Hoping I could tap dance a little longer. What I can
Okay.
see, no, it's fine. I can answer it briefly, and mostly correctly. What I can see at the tie-in of the station, we're looking at something like 23 feet from the top of the platform to the bottom of the truss itself, and then as we cross over to the other side, we have a minimum vertical clearance we need to maintain over the top of both of the freight lines that we go over. I want to say that's 31 feet, but I would have to look that up to be 100% clear on that, if that was the correct dimension or not. But that's what's driving the height of that bridge, is that minimum clearance over freight. And of course, the elevation at Bryn Mawr.
Do you see the chat?
Oh, within
Andy?
the walkway.
Bill's,
oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I could probably answer that one.
You did all that work just for nothing.
Well, I misinterpreted the question. That's okay. No, it's not for nothing. That's good information somebody will want to know someday anyway.
Absolutely. I thought it was good.
Can you give me a second to pull a plan on that, Katie? Can you
Sure,
come
yeah,
back to that one?
We can circle back. Yeah, we've got, I think, someone in the Richard Adair has a question. So go ahead, Richard. You want to go ahead and unmute?
Dick, you're on mute.
I think you gotta just click your on there. There you go.
There you are.
Hear me.
Yep.
Go back to the question of pedestrian safety. Realize this is not in your turf, but as a driver, when you exit from a freeway when you're going about 60 miles an hour, it's hard to readjust that you're getting onto a neighborhood street where there might be pedestrians. And so if you could get MnDOT or whoever is in charge of 394 to put a sign up that says exit velocity 25 miles an hour or 30 miles an hour, that might help, because people really zip, as you said, they zip along coming east on 394, and they're still going very fast at the time where they're going to encounter pedestrians. So that's just a simple request that you could maybe make to MnDOT.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a helpful thing to recognize, and we work with the project partners, the county, MnDOT is in the mix, and we can convey that. I don't know if David or Andy want to add anything more, but we recognize, yeah, that's a concern.
And on the going the other way, when you're for pedestrians, when you're coming south on Penn and you want to go east on 394, there are two sets of lights you navigate as a car, and they're not coordinated. So that many times you waited at a red light to accelerate because you're in a hurry, and then the other light turns red. I'm talking about someone going southbound on Penn. And if those two lights could be coordinated a little better, I think that would cut down on people trying to cheat by getting through the second light. Just a comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Other folks who want to ask a question, go ahead and raise your hand.
Katie, you mind if I take the bike lockup question
Oh,
from
go
Don?
ahead, yeah.
I would say, Don, the best answer there is, it's a great thing to kind of like say, like to express interest for. I believe in the past we have at the very minimum discussed bike amenities. I think bike lockers are something that Metro Transit continues to evaluate in terms of their effectiveness and like, does the footprint of a bike locker, is it worth it, type of a thing. So when we get closer to 27, those are the types of things that we'll start taking a look at from an operations perspective, like what is Metro Transit doing system wide. Certainly there's going to be bike parking, but bike lockers would be something we'd have to keep an eye on as we get into like 2025, 2026. But it's a great, I think you should, as we get there, remember to bug us about those types of things, because those are the types of requests, we'll want to hear from the neighborhood as we get closer to opening day. And then, Katie, you mind if I also take Glenwood?
Yeah, I'm just noticing Gail's
yeah.
Glenwood question. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, we're anticipating Glenwood being open later this year. We had they were pouring the bridge deck, I think, this week, or part of it, one of the bridge decks. There's multiple bridge decks. So we're making good progress on that bridge, and we're looking forward to getting that roadway reopened for public use. You will see some updates about that later this summer, I would say. But the idea is certainly this year, later this year.
Are there any chat questions that we did not? I'm gonna make sure we got them all. David and I are tag teaming on that. So
yeah.
Is there anything that you see that we missed?
Bruce reiterate, is the right turn lane from eastbound 394 no longer there? It's there in the, let's see. Let's make sure before I just start spouting things off.
Katie, can you fix your screen share there? Maybe that would help.
The screen, okay, where should,
Just go back to the roll plot. That'll kind of help us with the final condition.
oh, got it, okay.
Yeah, the rolling right turn is still going to be there. It's really not highlighted in the roll plot because I don't think we're really touching it as far as I can tell.
You see it there? Or sorry, I'm not, yeah, that one?
Yep.
Right, yeah, there you go. So the modifications are at the actual intersection of Penn and the ramps, right? So you can see that right turn, as David alluded to, isn't really changing. So that pork chop median that's there today stays there, and that right turn stays there as well.
And it will be closed for the duration of the closure too, just as a
right.
for the construction.
Right.
Yep.
All right, Katie, as long as I got an open mic, I can clean up a couple of things.
Sure.
All right, so the barrel or the inside of the PED bridge is 10 foot 4 inches from finished concrete surface to bottom of ceiling. It's the center line of the PED bridge, and it's, what did I do here? 9 foot 3 at the edges, where we've got a little bit more of a overhead structure to support the roof and other things there. So approximately 10 feet to answer that question. Earlier regarding bicycle facilities, I do believe up top at the plaza area and the passenger drop off, I do believe there are bike facilities up there to secure a bicycle. I believe.
Okay. And
I didn't find the dirty details on that plan sheet yet, but I'm looking at the plaza sheets and I'm pretty sure they show
okay.
bike rings.
And Don Green just asked in the chat, is the pedestrian bridge heated?
I don't think so. It's open air. I'd have to check all the details on that, but David, maybe you have that specific.
I've always been under the impression it's open air. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. All right, and then we've got a question from Barry. I want to be mindful of our time. We got about 3 minutes left scheduled, but if the folks want to stay on after any lingering questions, I can do that. Go ahead, Barry.
Um, Okay. The issue that David raised, we've been raising for about 15 years, and that's the safety at that intersection. I mean, it's come up a number of times. How do we get that issue resolved? What do you suggest we do? Who do we need to talk to? We've been raising it with the project repeatedly, clearly from the first time we met out there with the people from the county years, eons ago. And there's never been any resolution of it. And how do we get that resolved?
Barry, I'd like to
Who's-
just ping that off
Who-
of kind of the coordination group that we meet with, and get you a good answer there, as opposed to just like an amorphous entity. That would be, I'd feel better about
Thank
giving you, yeah.
That's why, yeah, it's a follow-up. issue,
Yeah, and I'll make sure, Barry, you know, that we get that information to the neighborhood so you can start that conversation.
Thanks.
Katie?
Yeah, just a few last things to wrap up here. If you bear with me here, we've got another plug for the construction updates, electronic news. Go ahead and sign up, and that really is a great source for all things related to this piece on work, when the closure is happening, detours, timing, things like that. We can follow up with you if you weren't, like the last question, we'll follow up to get you answers that we weren't able to provide at this meeting. And we'll do that. We can post it and share with the BMNA group. Just so you're aware, advanced signage will be in place 1 week before the closure. So there will be signs and signals of that it's coming. And in addition, there is a 1-day, so this is in mid-May, there is a 1-day closure on eastbound South Wayzata Boulevard to bring in some materials for that pedestrian, I'm not going to get the language right, but some of the major construction pieces happening at the station area. So I don't know if you want
Katie,
more.
I can elaborate on
Go
that.
ahead,
No,
yeah.
that is to set that second section of the Penn Bridge. So that remaining section from the pier to the Bryn Mawr landing. So that's what that closure will be. They need to have cranes positioned up top. They got to bring it in by truck, pick it, and set it.
Oh, good. Okay, that's really helpful.
So folks, we'll make sure that the neighborhood knows when that's coming so we can get that information out to you.
Yeah. And then while I'm at it, we do have, if you're interested in the Green Line project as a whole, we are having a Minneapolis Town Hall meeting next week, Wednesday, April 26th at 6 o'clock. It will be a virtual meeting, probably similar to this, but we will be more comprehensively talking about all pieces of the line, particularly some of the Minneapolis segments. So if you're interested, please visit that website and you can find information on how to join. And then our contact information. You can connect with us as needed on your questions. And then, of course, if there's anything urgent, the 24-hour hotline is listed at the bottom. So thank you. Any last burning questions?
Just a reminder that this presentation will also be posted, like just the PowerPoint will be posted too, for those that just want to grab contact information.
It's not important for me to be right, but I wanted to just reiterate that I was right. There are bike loops at the passenger drop off. But it's not important.
So noted.
Hey folks, thanks for your time tonight.
Take care.
Have a good one.